I'm ready to start putting the poly brush on. I'll put it on the bottom first. Got it tipped up a little bit so I can get to that upper part of the bottom without reaching over it. And then once I get that under the cockpit done, I'll tip it up a little more so it's laying more flat. It won't be completely flat. It'll be about turned up about 270 degrees. We've got the air filter still going. I had it on initially just to circulate the air in here and so that chemicals vapors would get out of here faster. And that's still part of the reason why it's on, but hopefully it's filtered the air out a little bit so there's not much dust or anything hanging around in here. I went over the bottom with tack cloth. I am wearing nitrile gloves. Those other gloves were pretty much destroyed, even though they did protect my hands, but these are the heavy thickness nitriles. They're pretty nice, except they're hard to get on and off. I use a little bit of baby powder on them to get them on. I'm going to go ahead and wear my respirator mask there while I'm doing this. Again, I've got the door open and the fan going on the outside there. And I'll use my 3-inch brush. We'll get started at this. Well, I got pink stuff all over the airplane. Looks pretty good, I think. You can see the runs in the poly brush, and you might think that's a bad thing, but that is on the inside of the fabric, not on the outside, so that's a good thing. I pushed real hard on the brush, and you actually used it to scrub to push the poly brush through the weave, and so that goes through on the other side, and that completely fills the weave and gets on the back side of it, encapsulates the weave. I've helped work on a couple of brand new airplanes from a manufacturer that had trouble with paint coming off of the belly and horizontal stabilizer and elevators and stuff, and it would come off in sheets all the way down to leave white fabric. And at first I thought it was a problem with them not using a primer and not using the right primer on the paint, but after thinking about it and after getting involved in doing the fabric work, it's more likely that the problem is that a misapplication of the poly brush. They maybe got in a hurry, kept the airplane light or do it fast or something like that, and just sprayed the poly brush on instead of putting the first coat on with a brush and making sure it got all the way in the fabric, or maybe they put it on with the poly brush not thinned enough so that it didn't penetrate the weave of the fabric or something. But I suspect that's the problem, is the poly brush wasn't penetrating the weave of the fabric, because if it's put on right, it should be no way for it to come off, because it's just like fiberglass. It just goes all the way through the weave and encapsulates it, so there's no way the poly brush should come off of there. And then of course the further layers of poly brush bond with the first layer, and the poly spray bonds with that, so they all become just one piece. There's no layers or anything like that, like you might think of in a paint job, between putting new paint over old paint or new paint over primer or something like that. It's all one layer. Well, now that the aircraft, the fuselage, is in the pink, it's time to start applying the gussets and the finishing tapes. Some of the taping is pretty obvious. You got the upper and lower longeron and the stringers. Then we got places around the baggage compartment doors and the forward door, and of course the forward edge of the fabric there where it attaches to the fuselage. Some of the places not so obvious I found when I was washing the plane with the MEK after we got it all stretched is there's a couple of bolts that hold pulleys just up inside the wing root. They're the flap control pulleys. where the flap cables come through from the wing through the wing root. Those bolt heads don't protrude up into the fabric, but it doesn't take very much pressure to push them down onto it. So since this plane is outside in the weather quite a bit, and a good chance it might be out in the snow, the weight of the snow might push down on there and wear on those. So, and then there's a V-strut, V-brace that goes from the back of the doorpost there, the wing carry-through spar, back to the rear bulkhead, and that again doesn't contact the fabric directly, but it isn't very far from the fabric down to it, so that could get a snow load on it. And then back here on the aft baggage compartment, the back part of it there, I had the screws in there, the nut plates put on there that hold those panels on for that upper baggage compartment. Those screws stick through far enough that they contact the fabric. I'll put some tape over that. That's not someplace I'd normally think about doing it. As a rule, a lot of this structure or non-structure, those stringers and a few other places, keep that fabric far enough off of most of the internal structure that it's not a threat to rub on. The thing to do now is to figure out a procedure of which ones to go first. Probably turn it over, the belly up, or the belly sideways anyway, and there's some tapes that go on the belly, and then a couple inspection covers that go on there. So we'll go ahead and locate those, fabricate them, and get those stuck on there. Then we'll figure out a way to do the rest of these so that it's kind of a logical way. And hopefully what we want is the long tapes to cover all of the shorter tapes and stuff. So we'll do the ones over the longerons and the stringers last. I also have to go back here and stitch the fabric to the ribs on the vertical fin. Almost ashamed to poke into that fabric back there and stitch that, especially that second rib down. That one, the fabric is fared out pretty good around that. Doesn't really touch either one of those, but once you get the air flowing around it, they probably start flopping around pretty good. So those need to be stitched down. So we'll get at that.